Inflation has everyone feeling the pinch of higher prices, but advocates for people living on ODSP, the Ontario Disability Support Program, say it's making things untenable. With us for more, the newest member of our Ontario Hubs team, affordability journalist Kat Eschner. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dan.
All right, so Canadians got a little bit of good news. This week, actually, there was a report that the consumer price index went down to about 7%, but grocery prices are still high and rent isn't getting any lower. Can you give us an idea of social assistance payments versus what's realistically needed for comfortable living?
Absolutely. So for starters, as you acknowledge, the overall inflation rate has gone down, but prices are still going up on a lot of important categories, particularly those that we all need, like housing and food. So for social assistance, the Ontario Disability Support Program, which is what you were talking about up top, pays out at $1,227 per month after a recent 5% rate hike from the Ford government. And Ontario Works, which is income support for anyone who can work, but for whatever reason isn't able to earn enough, is just $733 a month. Now, we both pay bills.
Right.
We both pay bills. It's not a lot of money. So when we're thinking about what a livable amount of money is, I think that you can look at a few different metrics. So the official poverty line is around $1,660. That's kind of an outdated metric, just because it's very difficult to keep up with what inflation is doing currently with the poverty line. $2,200 is what advocates have suggested might be a more feasible poverty line. But I think the number to really look at when you're thinking about what a livable wage, a livable amount of money to make do on, is the CERP payout of $2,000 a month.
Right.
And that's a number that people I interviewed for this story brought up a number of times. They're like, the pandemic has shown us that $2,000 is the floor of what the government deems is an appropriate amount of money to give people to live when they have to step in to help. So why are we still being paid much less than that?
All right, so advocates have been calling for doubling of support payments. It got the attention of the Ontario NDP. How has that helped? Where has that conversation gone?
I think this is an interesting one. So the doubling the ODSP idea is not a new idea. Before the election, it was being called for, and it had some attention from parties at that time, but only the Greens got on board to actually support a future policy of this. However, even then, talking about doubling the ODSP, talking about raising the rates, really meant that that had to be something that each party had in its platform. And we saw that with the PCs. They actually had to put in place a policy that they would raise the rates by 5%. And they've been saying they'll index it to inflation, although that hasn't been done yet, any forward-going increases. So it's helped get it on the agenda. I think for context, we need to consider how much money that would be. So doubling the ODSP at current rates, so for a single person living alone or living in a congregate setting but not with family, the rate would be $2,454 instead of $1,227. That's a lot more money. And for an Ontario Works recipient, that amount would be $1,466, which again is a lot more money. And I think that really what this has done is highlighted how little money these people are currently receiving. I asked some people I interviewed for this story about what doubling the rates would mean for them. And they pretty much universally said that it would mean more stability. It would mean that they had a little more choice in how and where they lived, a little more agency in what they chose to buy, and the ability to plan for the future in a way that currently it's very difficult to do on the income they have now.
Well, let's talk about that. So, living below the poverty level can affect every part of life. I'm sure there are some common themes there. What are people saying, the people that you interviewed for your first story?
So I think there are some common themes here. The number one thing I heard about was housing and food. So to zero in on food for a sec, pretty much everybody I talked to for this story could tell me to the dollar how much certain staples they bought had gone up. So they really noticed any impact on their grocery bill. Mitchell Tremblay, one of the men I interviewed, he was talking about how he lives on just over $9 a day. That's for food, for toiletries, for all those things have to go into his $9 a day. So you can imagine that like a $1 inflation on the cost of a loaf of bread, for example, would be a huge impact.
Some very interesting stuff there. I want to talk a little bit more about the response from all the governments. Let's look at what the Ontario government said in part. This summer, our government made the largest increase to ODSP rates in decades. They went on to say, we continue to stress the importance of the federal government delivering on their campaign promise to implement the Canadian Disability Benefit to support Ontarians who need it most, and will work with them to achieve it. Our government remains committed to listening and working with individuals, communities, organizations, partners, and all levels of government to empower people and support those in need to reach their full potential. This was in an email that you got from the government. Give us a little background behind that.
Right. So what had happened is I had contacted the office of the minister, Marilee Fullerton. She's the Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, and she's the minister in charge of this file. And I had said, can I interview Minister Fullerton about what I'm hearing from people on these programs and what the government will be doing further to the 5% rate increase they had already introduced. They said she declined to be interviewed. She, didn't want to speak to me for whatever reason, but they did say, oh, well, you can send in some questions and we'll respond to those questions by email. So I sent in a list of 6 specific questions about the programs as they are now, any planned increases to rates, any forward-looking things, and also the push to double the rates. What I received back was this response, which didn't substantively address any of those questions or directly address them, and was very in line with the things that Minister Fullerton has said in the House on this portfolio, and the things that other ministers have also and Premier Ford have also addressed, at different times. So it was not really a response to the questions I was asking, and it was the same strategy they've been using for a while. I did post on my Twitter both the questions I asked, a screenshot, and the full answer I received. So if anyone's interested, they can look at that.
I want to get your take as well in terms of the Liberals and Greens. Have they weighed in terms of not only on the 5% as well, but just sort of the unaffordability right now for a lot of Ontarians?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that, from looking at the minutes of the House session so far, every party has raised the issue of ODSP and Ontario Works in some way. So the NDP is now pretty much firmly behind this Double the ODSP program push. The Greens have been there for a while. The Liberal Party has been a little quieter on this file, but they haven't said nothing. There are 2 people in the House who've spoken about this so far. So they're currently calling for a 20% rate hike on ODSP and Ontario Works, and a review of the idea of a universal basic income program, which is another way of addressing this problem. It doesn't have to be through these very means-tested, very onerous programs that are difficult to access. It could be through another method.
All right, so you talked about solutions there. There seems like an obvious one, but based on your research, what do you think it is?
Looking at everything that advocates and people on these programs have said about it, looking at everything that has been tried in the past, it's hard to think that the solution is not, in some way, just more money getting to people on these programs who need to live. I mean, if you even look at the, at the time controversial rates that Mike Harris set when these programs were introduced in their current form in the 90s, ODSP was, for a single person, was $930 a month. If it had just kept pace with the overall inflation rate, which, as we've acknowledged, is not the rate that food and housing have gone up at, those have gone up at a much higher rate, it would be $1,552 today. Similarly, Ontario Works, it was $520 in 1995. And if it had kept pace with inflation, it would be at $904, which is about $200 above the current rate. So it's hard to see how even the most conservative measure, even by that measure, more money is not somehow having to be part of the solution.
Kat, really great stuff. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
My pleasure.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.